This to jump into Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Hey, my man, rocking.
We're going long tonight. I'm
super long. Wow.
Wait, what? Wait, what time is it?
It's 10.
10.
What? Really?
Yeah.
We've been talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay, well, I'll take a sip. You got to stay hydrated, people.
Take a sip, guys.
I don't like any of the political establishment. I think there's very few people on either side that I like and think are good people, and there's slightly more Republicans than Democrats. But I think it's because the majority of both parties are people who, like I said, didn't have to do anything. Gerrymandering, heavy guaranteed districts, you end up with Republican areas that are always going to be Republican. So the Republicans, they don't got to do anything. They'll be like, hey, vote for me. Or don't. Haha, who cares? The Democrat says the same thing. Mm-hmm. Nancy Pelosi held up a glass of water and she said, in my district or AOC's, you put a D on this glass of water, it's going to get elected. That's a problem. That's a serious problem.
I disavow Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, as you should.
I want it to be
so I like the idea of ranked choice voting because to me, it would get rid of, actually, I'm not entirely convinced it would get rid of Nancy Pelosi.
Term limits would. How do you feel about term limits?
I haven't seen any evidence that they lead to a more democratic government. I'm 50-50. I could go either way. Though I have to say, I really do think the only reason that Nancy Pelosi is still in there right now is because of fear. Democrats are terrified of Trump. I think they have good reason to be. But you have somebody, Shahid Buttar, who's running against Nancy Pelosi to try and unseat her in her district.
Republican?
No, a Democrat, a progressive though, like in line with
the primary
Bernie AOC.
Passed already.
Yeah, no, it did, and that's the thing. And I think that like fundamentally, the Democratic Party is ready to move on to a different set of ideas, a more true fulfillment, maybe, of what it could mean for its citizens, and the party the citizenry, the actual elected officials, though, have every trick in the book that they can pull out to maintain themselves in power for as long as is humanly possible.
And this is my argument for why Trump needs to win.
Oh, no.
Joe Biden is a 47-year establishment crony who wants control of the executive branch to seal the doors and never allow any challenge ever again. They are upset that they lost in 2016. They weren't supposed to. They did everything to crush Bernie Sanders. And Donald Trump is the insurgent who upended the Republican Party, and they hated his guts too. Now they're beholden to him. Here's my opinion, and I asked for yours and afterward. If Joe Biden gets in, he's locking the doors. They're going to shore up the fences. They're going to install their bureaucrats. They're going to make sure that you guys don't get a foot in the door ever. You got too close with Bernie Sanders. Trump, see, here's the thing. Bernie Sanders, left-wing populist. Donald Trump, right-wing populist. The elites did not like either of them. The establishment Republicans hate Trump, and that's exemplified by the Lincoln Project and the cronies who are now just espousing whatever the Democrats want them to say. If Joe Biden wins, they get back in the ivory tower, they bolt the doors shut, and they laugh at both populist wings. Trump was a bull brought to the gates who stormed in, trashed everything, and the Democrats are freaking out, but still in there. Bernie Sanders was very polite. Hello, let me in, please. I'll agree with you. I'll stop saying the millionaires. If Joe Biden wins, I believe there will never be another populist, be it left, right, or whatever. I think if Trump wins, Joe Biden was the best they could muster. They are done. If Joe Biden gets in and Kamala Harris then ends up being that person in charge, there will never be a Bernie Sanders. There will never be a leftist populist. But if Trump gets in and the establishment withers and dies over the next 4 years because Trump's going nuts, he's going to fire everybody. He's stripping all these government protections from these employees. He said he's going to fire the head of the CIA.
To put his own cronies in, yeah.
But is he going to be able to do that? And
if he fires them, somebody has to go there.
But that's still an argument beyond what he is doing. So maybe that's an issue. But if Donald Trump gets rid of the bureaucrats and he strips the establishment of its power, then I believe in 2024, you're going to see something new and wild, whatever it is. I don't think it's going to be Trump 12 years. I think Joe Biden is the best they could muster up to try and save the crony establishment. And the Republicans like Rick Wilson and the other Lincoln Project people joined forces with them, showing us who they really are. Joe Biden is getting more money from Wall Street than Trump is. He gets more money from the wealthy than Trump does. He is the establishment billionaire candidate who is being protected by big tech and billionaires who are censoring stories that might hurt him.
Okay.
Let Biden go.
Okay. So we've got a lot to unpack here.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I fail to see in any meaningful way how Trump is anti-establishment. He has consolidated an enormous amount of power into the federal government. He seems as if not more comfortable with executive orders than Obama ever did. He's up drone strikes. And what's more, he has fundamentally eroded the institutions which are meant to challenge the government. The media. Is the media bad? Absolutely. But the media still serves a very useful role in this country, as ineffectually as they do.
How has Trump done that?
The media has constantly called Trump has constantly called the media the enemy of the people. He's threatened to remove press badges from people who are mean to him at press conferences.
I know Obama did it to Fox News.
It's the degree to which this took place is not even comparable. These are two different worlds. And calling press the enemy of the people is like fascism 101. I don't care about right-leaning people getting their populists in office. Right-leaning populism has a name. It's fascism. I don't want these people. It unquestionably is. I don't want these people in office. I don't care about
Can you define fascism?
Yeah, fascism is an ultra-nationalist far-right form of government which relies on the assembly of the common will, the unification of a national narrative against enemies from both within and from without. It usually has to focus on things like machismo or perhaps on the belief in a type of ethnic or racial supremacy.
So how would you define right-wing libertarians?
Right, I don't think there is a such thing as a right-wing libertarian.
Well, how is that possible?
Because I have never met one. I keep talking to people who say they are, and then they stop being libertarian the moment it comes to literally any issue other than taxes and weed.
There was a dude who took his clothes off on the stage of the libertarian debate to argue about freedom, and they had a debate over whether or not you should be allowed to sell heroin to kids.
Yeah. They are some amazing people. I will not deny it, but they aren't populist. Libertarian don't tend to be. Wait, but I have to say, because we have so much to unpack here. With regards to Trump, okay, is Joe Biden a candidate that I feel proud of voting for? Of course not. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not even going to waste time defending that. When it comes to the means for populism to interfere with the government after Joe Biden wins, I am optimistic. He has managed to, that is to say, Bernie Sanders has extracted an enormous number of concessions from Joe Biden, and what's more, there are increasing signs that the popularity of the Squad and of other more populist, left-leaning, progressive, sometimes even socialist candidates, they are starting to wean in on the Democratic Party. The constant conflict between Pelosi and AOC, and the fact that at certain points Pelosi has had to defer public opinion to AOC in those respects, is an indication that within that party there is a real chance at these dinosaurs. I think the average age of the Democratic politician is like 71 or something. These dinosaurs being ousted. Now, mind you, I am a socialist. I don't think AOC is radical enough, but I recognize that progressive change in a given direction is preferable, especially when we recognize what we're gambling with here. Even if I were to believe that Donald Trump was some sort of anti-establishment bull, and I don't, consolidated heavy amounts of federal power, defunded institutions.
What does that mean?
Well, the constant use of executive action, the fact that he has normalized attacks on institutions which attack him, like, for example, his attempt to try and get the FBI director fired during the RussiaGate investigation, or the constant attacks on the press and the media, or the fact that he seems to be contemptuous of the very idea of losing an election itself.
He's consolidating federal power, but trying to also fire the heads of these institutions.
It's federal. I should be more specific. Executive power.
Yes.
Right, but
hasn't he been heavily constrained in every direction? He's been sued a million times.
Yeah, because he keeps breaking the law. He breaks the law constantly. He does. Yeah, he has engaged in scandal after scandal after scandal over the course of his presidency.
Just be specific.
With what? I mean,
we could name a scandal, name laws broken. Because we hear it a lot. I can tell you that does Trump use his authority and push really hard and then get challenged in the courts and lose sometimes and win sometimes?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. So we can talk about the administration. First of all, the RussiaGate investigation led to literally dozens of credible indictments and arrests with regards to their misappropriation of funds or with their collaboration with foreign governments. We have the Ukraine scandal, of course, with regards to him bartering aid with their willingness to help him.
That seems true now, though.
What do you mean?
That Joe Biden was using his son as an intermediary.
You still can't withhold aid on the condition that they release that information.
Well, so it's an argument about whether or not Trump had a right to withhold aid.
That's illegal.
Joe Biden did it.
He did it. He literally did it. We have him on camera.
Joe Biden said,
so they're both criminals.
You won't get the money unless you do what I want.
Yeah,
they're both criminals?
Wait, I'm not. Wait, I have never at any point in my life defended Joe Biden.
No. I know. But if we can make that argument, we could say then Joe Biden's doing the same thing.
Yeah, the difference is that Joe Biden wasn't the president of the United States of America when he did it. Yeah. I mean, if you want, you're free to investigate. You're free to investigate when you do this. What do you mean?
Why is the media in its big?
What do you mean the media? Wait, this
organization,
this vague conspiracism.
You guys are the media too.
No. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have both now written that there was a big effort to not cover the Biden scandal.
I would need to look into the specifics of it. One of the things that I don't like when we talk about the badness of these characteristics is when we start playing defense for them on the assumption that the media is going after them or not going after them. The left-leaning media will go after left-leaning aims.
Yep.
Right-leaning media will go after right-leaning aims. There is no such thing as journalistic integrity or objectivity. There are only people and power and money.
Well, the establishment media.
I don't know what the establishment media
So the New York
means.
Times, for instance.
How is that just the... What about Fox News is the most viewed news station in the country. Tucker Carlson is the largest pundit.
Great
Talk
radio.
show
And do you know how
radio.
many views Chris Cuomo and Rachel Maddow got combined?
I mean...
Like 8 million. And do you know what Tucker Carlson got? In his average was 5. So if you're comparing...
He's peaked at tens of millions, hasn't he?
He's what?
Hasn't he peaked recently? He got like his ratings
No.
hit like...
It's 5 million was like the historical record. He's like the most viewed.
My goodness.
But,
Sorry.
But when you combine CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, it's tenfold.
Because you're combining all of the left-wing media, and arguably some of these are barely left-leaning, with with one partisan right media. If you take a look at all of talk radio, if you take a look at Fox News, if you take a look at OAN, for example,
OAN's viewership is like
no, it's not.
really
It's not
low.
great, but it does have a lot of influence within the government because we know that Trump watches it, and Trump is himself a form of media. When he talks about things with the broadcasts that he reflects essentially far-right partisan talking points. These are in many ways reflective of the political opinions that right-leaning people have forthcoming. We got off a little bit here.
We did.
I want to talk specifically though about Trump with regards to his practice in government.
Yeah.
Even if we're to leave aside the supported criminality of any candidate, because as far as I'm concerned, being the president is a crime. I'm not.
It's a weird job.
I'm really not in a position
I'm
to.
okay with the president, but
I'd
all
like to have
right.
more
This
people.
is one of the things that I've said. Even if because you don't want Bernie Sanders to win, you my fellow lefties, whoever's watching, would be devastated to see what even a left-leaning person has to do to be and stay president in the United States, especially with regards to foreign policy. But if we want to look past that stuff, if we want to look at stuff like climate change, or if we want to look at stuff regarding like education, or if we want to look at stuff just regarding like the fundamental gentlemen's agreements that have operated in this country for centuries now that seem to be unweaving, I don't think that the Trump presidency is anti-establishment. I think that he's very pro-corporate. I think he's very pro-government as long as it's his government. I think that his persistent refusal to acknowledge that if he loses in the election, that he should actually step down peacefully is terrifying. And I think that while Joe Biden is a haughty institutionalist crony who probably has as many original thoughts in his head that weren't given to him by like focus groups as like your average chipmunk,
Yeah.
I think that he
Fair.
is
That's me to chipmunks.
yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sure
Much
I've
love
known many
chipmunks.
wonderful
Chipmunk
chipmunks.
demographic.
I think that he is, at least with regards to climate change, which I think is a very simple, very, very easy thing to focus on, an objective improvement, and that he also allows for meaningful left-wing populism as opposed to what Trump is, which is a gateway to very, very bad far-right populism.
Have you read about Obamagate?
Yes. You mean the thing where he spied on Trump?
So, like the meeting with Sally Yates and Comey and Biden and Obama, where Joe Biden suggested using the Logan Act against Michael Flynn to falsely prosecute him, where they then threatened his son with imprisonment unless he agreed to testify against Trump.
Okay. Did any of that actually happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to clarify, though, the notes that were released in the investigation by the FBI show that there was a note scrawled that ascribed Logan Act to Joe Biden in a meeting with Sally Yates. Immediately afterwards, I think it was Sally Yates who then wrote an email to herself explaining everything that happened and sent it to her. And then several government employees in the FBI took out liability insurance, saying, I'm paraphrasing, that we're in serious trouble. We better buy insurance because we're going to get sued over this.
Okay. I can't speak to the specifics of this. I know that Trump has vaguely alluded at some sort of left conspiracy to deny him the presidency, which has always come off very
So the notes are
fascist
released.
to me.
The notes are released. Do you know about the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page things?
I have to say, and I apologize if this comes off like, I guess, disinterested, but having followed, I guess, the events leading up to it, I've explored this Obamagate thing pretty extensively. From what I've seen and from the media sources that I've looked at and the information, the analysis, I haven't seen anything that even remotely justifies the claims that Trump has made about this.
Do you know about the text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok?
I don't know the specific.
So where he said, we're going to stop him, we have an insurance policy. This is all public information. I think the issue is when you talk about RussiaGate and Trump's actions, it's coming from a place of you not actually looking at the evidence.
No, I assure you, I have. The issue is that
Well, if you didn't know about the meeting with Comey and Yates
No,
and
I'm
Obama and the Logan Act and what Michael Flynn was threatened with, And like, do you know about the ongoing court case where Judge Sullivan is blocking the the government from dropping its own case?
No, I'm familiar with the things that you referred to here. The issue is that what usually happens with this is that there are a lot of nuances to these cases that need to be looked over thoroughly, and usually the way they're presented is extremely hyperbolic.
Like RussiaGate.
Well, RussiaGate
So-
provide. Well, again, keep in mind this is the big difference between right-leaning claims and RussiaGate. RussiaGate was investigated, dozens of indictments and arrests. All these
Not
accusations.
related to RussiaGate, though.
They were brought about by the investigation into RussiaGate involving the misappropriation of campaign
We have an
funds.
ex-FBI lawyer who was recently indicted on altering evidence to frame Carter Page and get false FISA warrants to investigate in the RussiaGate. So some of these may have been, maybe what's the saying? Fruit of the poison tree or whatever?
Fruit of the poison tree.
Fruit
Yeah.
of the poison tree.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, a lot of the
for
Trump
instance,
administration
Paul
has found
Manafort.
themselves arrested.
Do you know how Paul Manafort ended up getting found out? It was actually Ukrainians colluding with the DNC operative and providing documents, which led to the investigation of Manafort. So it was all overtly political actions.
There's nothing. Well, it's
Wait,
not.
wait.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with political actions. We're talking about the investigation of a political administration of the Trump administration.
The reason I bring this up is
And by the way, we've moved somewhat off of the electability or the electoralism argument here.
So here's the point: the way you framed everything about Trump and the actions and the things he was saying, firing Comey, sounds like Comey should have been fired based on the information that's come out since he fired him.
That is, wait, hold on. That is, first of all, even if that is the case, which I sincerely doubt it is, that is absolutely not why Trump claimed to. The evidence that was provided with regards to his attempt was he wanted Comey fired because Comey was looking into him. You can't post hoc justify an illegal act because it turns out later.
Trump tweeted way early that he was being spied on by Obama.
He wasn't being spied on by Obama.
So
the accusations
the FBI
that were
had informants that were going and having meetings with Trump's people and then spying on them.
That is what the FBI does.
So you have people who were spying on Trump's campaign. It's a colloquial. I mean, if you want to argue semantics about the
No,
word
that's
spying.
the FBI does that for every campaign. That's their job.
So if you have, before Trump is inaugurated, a meeting with Obama, Yates, Comey, and then you have these notes, you have these text messages between FBI agents, and Trump knew about this, but it wasn't declassified, so Trump took action and fired the guy. I mean, it sounds justified.
Well, he didn't fire. He attempted to fire the guy, and he wasn't able to.
Comey?
Yeah,
We did fire Comey.
Well, no,
And then Comey was like, I have a great recollection. Trump said this to me, and I'm like, what?
No. The when he was being investigated for the RussiaGate stuff. Oh my goodness!
Oh, there's a cat.
I think a cat just knocked
She-
the.
No, my
She
mic
did.
fell.
Oh, okay. Well, the cat ran
Hold on,
afterwards.
we gotta fix everything.
Well,
Anyway.
you keep talking.
Carry on, yes.
No, his efforts to fire. There was the intermediary who asked to fire the guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. The person who he attempted to fire, and he said no, and then Trump fired that guy. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that name?
Was that what was his name? Oh,
I
man.
can't remember. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm completely. Huh?
Was it
Total
No,
blank.
Sessions resigned.
No, yeah, Sessions right.
Look. I'm not bringing this up to be like everything.
I just feel
perfect.
but it's just it's interesting to me because again it falls like on this vague conspiracism like with
But
regards
it's not vague. I mean, look, if you read the news on these things, you know what I'm talking about.
No, but I have. It's just a lot of these claims get jumbled up, and to be honest, I forget which narrative or which universe that I'm operating in at any given point. With regards to like the RussiaGate investigation, there was solid evidence. They went in, they investigated.
What was
they
the evidence?
The evidence with regards to the RussiaGate investigation.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like some evidence that there may have been like meetings held with members of the Trump administration with regards to them accepting deals or information from Russia?
I don't know. Are you sure?
I mean, it's been like 3 years since this was politically relevant.
What I can tell you is that we know that the FISA warrants were obtained through malpractice, I guess that you can put it. So we had...
How?
They lied. An ex-FBI lawyer has been indicted and charged for altering evidence to imply that Carter Page was not an asset of the CIA when he was having these meetings, when in fact he was doing it for the U.S. government.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that then.
So they essentially got bunk FISA warrants. Then we ended up with, before Trump got inaugurated, you have these notes released that, to the best of our understanding, it's a meeting between several individuals in the Obama administration to try and find a way to go after Michael Flynn, to get him to, I guess, the FBI notes actually read, what's our goal? I think it's a text message. What's our goal? To prosecute or get him fired? My question when that came out was, why is the FBI trying to get a guy fired from his job?
Well, why were they?
Obama told Trump not to hire Michael Flynn. Trump hired him anyway. I guess Trump did it as an FU to Obama. So for some reason then, Obama has a meeting. They take notes on Logan Act maybe for Michael Flynn. Then Michael Flynn gets accused of breaking the Logan Act. or this was what launched the investigation, even though no one's ever been prosecuted under the Logan Act. It's an obscure law that says U.S. Individuals can't represent themselves as agents of a government, because as acting national security advisor, he had a conversation with the Russian ambassador asking him not to escalate tensions between the countries. That was the justification for launching this. It was insane. Then you have text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page where they're saying, we have an insurance policy, we'll stop him. So Trump complains about this. Trump wants to fire these people, but then the RussiaGate investigation stopped him from taking any action against them. I'll tell you what, man.
What?
If at the end of this we say no Trump, no Biden, but we get rid of all of these intelligence bureaucrats, I'm down. I'm totally down.
Well,
I mean,
you'll find most leftists aren't big fans of intelligence agencies.
For sure. So when Trump says that, like, I'll put it this way.
Do you agree with Trump then when he says that they're spying on me? Didn't even get my first term. Frankly, I should be allowed a third term.
No.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this.
He says a lot of really weird stuff sometimes.
I know,
I'm at something of a disadvantage here, and I apologize for that, because with regards to the RussiaGate investigation thing, it's been a while since I've brushed up on this respective information. I do know that the investigation that did lead to a number of legitimate investigations and arrests and indictments. And I think there's something to be said about that. I feel it's often very difficult to understand the totality of like a government conspiracy or like something going on behind the scenes until everything is sussed out through a proper investigation. And for that reason, sometimes it can be really difficult to understand not only the specificity of events that have taken place, but the severity of them as well. Because if you want to, and I'm not saying you're doing this because everyone does this to some extent, if you want to, a disparate set of pieces of information that can be assessed and collected and presented in such a way as to give a narrative. And then once you have that narrative, you can run with it. And that's what Trump has done very often with this Obamagate thing, for example. Like, I remember when a reporter asked him what Obamagate was, and he was like, you know, and then he walked away, which I think was fair.
I think it was Trump not knowing.
Well, then, I mean, but that's
too.
the thing. And that's one of the issues that I have as well. I think that there has probably been more confused information put out from our government over the past 4 years than possibly any other single presidential administration, in large part because there doesn't seem to be any sort of cohesive narrative. It's just scraps of information being used whenever they're politically convenient and discarded when they're not. And this is, if I may bring this back around to what we were talking about earlier, one of the things that really concerns me about Trump. This is an anti-establishment tendency. This is just incompetent governance. This doesn't break the government in a way that makes it more fair or more representative or more kind or more decent or more efficient. This is a type of governance which just makes it worse.
So do you want a competent establishment or an incompetent one?
I mean, competent in certain ways when it comes to coronavirus handling, when it comes to the dissemination of healthcare, when it comes to proper schooling, all areas I think Trump has been woefully inadequate in. I would absolutely prefer a competent establishment because education, handled properly, empowers us. Not keeping us in our homes to be sick and die from coronavirus, that empowers us. There are ways the government, when managed properly, even in an establishment sense, even like someone like Obama, and I hate Obama, can give us tools that we need to become stronger. The best example of this that I use, and I use this when arguing with Bernier busters all the time, is they say Obama stopped the wheels of history. His corporate neoliberalism prevented the American people from waking up and recognizing what was wrong with the system. And I say to them, okay, I don't like Obama either. Great, sure. After Obama had 2 terms, guess who ended up coming in second, narrow second, under Hillary Clinton, the next Democratic primaries? Some nobody, independent senator who then, in large part because people were disillusioned with Obama, but nonetheless given the tools to think and to act.
That's the internet.
The internet, yeah, but also people weren't terrified of a pandemic or of global warming, at least not as much as they are today. People weren't dealing with substandard schooling. The more people are terrified and confined and weakened by their circumstances, the less politically emancipated they are.
You know what makes it a real challenge having conversations like this is just that there's a lot of things you've read that I haven't, a lot of things I've read you haven't, and there are a lot of people who have read things that neither of us have or haven't. But everybody expects us to like come to a definitive understanding and solution within the span of a couple hours. I'm just bringing it up because I know that no one's going to be satisfied.
Oh, I have never come to a definitive solution on anything over any length of time in a conversation.
So the reason I say this is because when you bring up global warming, when you bring up the far right, when you bring up RussiaGate, I'm like, wow. To like have a conversation on each of those subjects would take an hour to 3 or 4 hours. Like, so just to briefly mention this. in your opinion, you said there's no actual right-wing libertarians because whenever it comes to it, they actually end up, being more authoritarian.
Libertarianism was originally a leftist ideology, and it was appropriated. Yeah, I don't.
Not to get into it. To mention that. Then there's also like RussiaGate, where you're like, it's been a while since I talked to this, and then the reason I brought that up was like, we got to really break that down to address one point, and then climate change. There's a lot there too. Like, what are we doing internationally? What would why hasn't Joe Biden done anything about China? Not to open up those conversations. I'm just pointing out. There's a lot in each of those we'd have to actually break down.
Yeah, of course. It's literally impossible to.
Right.
Even if you have a very specific policy-focused discussion on one issue, say school choice. That's a big one for Republicans these days. That's easily a 3-hour discussion, depending on how many sources you bring.
Yeah.
That can go the whole day.
Are you for school choice?
I am not for school choice, no.
Why not? Why shouldn't people have the right to just choose?
I think it puts the blame in that. So here's my concern, right? Individual responsibility is the mantra of the Republican Party. Why are things in your life not going well? Individual responsibility. Sometimes that's true. We are agents capable of making our own decisions. But when it comes to systemic issues like neighborhoods with poor schooling, these people don't get bad educations because of poor decision making. They get it because their neighborhoods have been wastelands that the government hasn't invested in for decades. My concern, and this is what I fear, I wake up at night in a sweat thinking about this. It's imagine some single black lady, 2 kids, 2 jobs, and now all of a sudden school choice happens. Her local district is crap. There's one 30 minutes away she could drive her kids to, maybe even 20 minutes away. It's better. Okay, so you drive your kids to and from. Well, maybe you don't have time for that. Do you hire like a sitter to do it?
No, you send them to the crappy school they would normally have to go to.
Right, but that's the thing. And now, when that woman writes online or writes an article or appears at a town hall and she says, "What can I do? I am struggling." The answer is, you should have took them to a better school.
Sure.
And that worries me a lot.
But why take away the option?
Because I think there's a better solution to the same problem. We just invest in these communities. Also, we have to keep in mind, if a lot of people choose to move to different school districts or like take their kids there or whatever, the school district that's already there is going to be even worse because these schools get funding based on, participation. They're going to get cut more and more, meaning it'll be even worse for the people who don't have the option to go to the other ones. I say, why enable people to leave their wasteland and blame them if they don't, when we could just fix the wasteland?
So this gets into the bigger question about socialism, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Why I'm not a fan of socialism. I'm in favor of a mixed economy.
I'll get you one day.
No. Mixed economy, I think we need regulation, but I think we need people to freely trade. And the issue I take with schools, for instance, is that when they have problems, we just dump more money into it, as if a general investment fixes it. The problem, though, is we say, okay, what about review boards? What if we have like a review of the expenditures? Nobody wants to be the person to cut the job or to gut the schools. And then when people actually do, they complain the schools are being gutted. If the school isn't functioning properly, and I shouldn't say school, just government spending in general, what we tend to see, like in Chicago, for instance, is you get a wound. This is the way to describe it. You get a wound in your society where you have people who are suffering or struggling. We put a Band-Aid on it. We say we're gonna provide funding in this area to try and solve the problem. A few years go by and this hasn't going. I don't know. Throw more money into it, and they put another Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid.
Yep.
Eventually, you just have a festering wound. It's never been solved.
With a lot of Band-Aids.
What do you mean?
Because you have a lot of because they keep trying this. I don't disagree, by the way.
Yeah.
Throwing money at schools doesn't work. I think we've
Yes.
seen this time and time and time
But
again.
not just schools, everything.
Right. Well, there are some, like for example, like the more you give like the EPA money, they can like more reliable testing or whatever. But generally speaking, yeah, I think like schools in particular. And the reason for that is because schools aren't a product of the money that goes into them. Schools are a product of the minds that are inside of them,
Yep.
from administration to teachers to the students. And the issue is minds born under broken circumstances are just more fragile. That's just how it is. Money on its own is not the solution. What I'd like to see, the pipe dreaming here, is a proper public works program instituted in certain districts in this country. A lot of the issue that we have here is that the reason these kids don't care about school is because they know nothing's going to come from it. A lot of the people in their neighborhoods end up burnt out druggies anyway, with absolutely nothing to do with their lives, because there's just no opportunity. Public works programs, you have to invest in the community, not by paying private contractors to do it, but by paying the inhabitants of that community fair, healthy salaries. You need to have works up there. You can have, for example, revitalization of the rails and the roads and the public transportation. People become less reliant on cars, meaning they have to pay less car payments. There are so many things that you can do to these neighborhoods. And this is class-based. I don't want this to be like a black or a white thing. There are white communities in this country that are struggling. And I think that if with these steps, we can, I don't know, man, just the idea of an America where it's like, here's a quarter of the country, we just don't go there.
You can invest in new kinds of roads made out of bitumen, which will last for like decades, but they like planned obsolescence. They want to build things that will break so that they can spend more money on it again.
Corporations do.
Yeah, and that's where the money's coming from.
Politicians want to be under budget.
And they want to be friends of the corporation.
So I mean, look, there's a lot of problems.
I want to say, can I say one thing quickly about socialism? I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
You say it's great. It's fantastic.
So let me just talk about that for 5. What I'm in favor of is something called a workers' state. This is called by some people a dictatorship of the proletariat, which is a horrible term because it was termed before the term dictatorship meant what it currently means. But it essentially means, I just want to state where the workers have power. That doesn't mean bring out the guillotines or anything. It just means that when I think of like, what is a good country? Like, what does a good democracy or a good republic look like to me? I imagine one where the people inside of it have a lot of control over what goes on in a way that's responsibly channeled. It's not just like crazy, will of the masses stuff. And one of the big issues to me is that, as you just pointed out, corporations have a lot of power in this country, and we defer to them quite a bit of government power as well, much in the way that the old monarchies did with mercantilism. You want to do an East India Trading Company spice run, you get the King's Guard to help you. You get that fleet because the state is invested in the corporation succeeding, and the corporation makes a lot of money off that mutual partnership. But if these corporations or these construction companies or even these schools, frankly, are being run by people from the community who have a lot of internal democratic control within it, I think that could go a long way towards fixing this problem we see, where we just put money into these problems and it just burns through, it falls through a hole.
I think one of the problems we have with all government spending is that we don't know how to fail them. Whereas with businesses, they mostly just fail. The big problem I see with the way things are going right now, for one, I think a lot of the critiques of capitalism are more about the massive corporate structure and the imbalance of power, that once you reach a certain threshold of capital or wealth, you just own the system. Mm-hmm. You will never be poor. You will never fail again. Your kids will never fail. I mean, that's not necessarily true. There's generational wealth fades.
Right.
Small businesses fail all the time. But if you're an ultra wealthy person, you keep pumping money in until you figure it out. Or
lobby to get subsidies or tax breaks, and then you just forever.
So these are the two issues I see, and it's interesting because this argument is actually more of a classical, I guess, left and right argument of the days of yesteryear, 10 years ago, when it was like government versus corporations. I remember, during like Occupy, you had a lot of people on the left saying the government can help us, we need these programs, and the right was like, we need the free market, we need the corporate solutions, and I'm like, both are problems. In different ways. Massive multinational corporations.
You're both wrong.
Right. You're both just so awful. Government and massive corporations. We want small government and small business. So I like a mixed economy. I think we need to figure out how we do government programs in a way that if they fail, they fail. And we need to make sure we don't have massive multinational corporations with no interest in helping the people, but selling them out because they can get better laws to violate human rights in other countries where they can just hire people for a quarter and then have them do, essentially slave labor and then sell garbage to the American people at a marked up price and then become... Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.